League, the thing is that you play these characters over and over and over. Hundreds, in some cases, thousands of hours people sit with these characters. I'm actually just messing around in the jungler right now.
Who are you playing?
Mordekaiser. Because he's heavy metal. They're always in this one map, you know, in this one environment. And you start to wonder, like, where do they sleep? What do they eat? What is their normal life like? You know, like, what kind of families would they have? We knew Arcane was going to be the very first deep story expression of League of Legends. There's enough video games where the audience asks for a movie or a show for years and years and years, and then they make it, and then it sucks. And then guess what? People stop asking. We were afraid of that. We were like, if we make something that isn't at least good, then we're really, really harming the League IP. Right now, obviously, you know, the phase is trying to wrap up season 1.
This is Echo with...
Without hair.
Just, oh yeah, without hair, right, I forgot. Here.
She will be the worst kept secret of the show. Everyone will know it's Echo when they see him with the mask on, I mean.
You think?
Yeah, of course.
In the trailer, I've seen like several videos, people analyzing it, and they're like, oh, this character
let's say that
is
Echo.
absolutely not Echo.
Well, but
like,
okay,
yeah.
but so the second they see that he has the pocket watch,
true,
everyone
yeah.
knows he's like the, you know, the boy who shattered time. I mean,
that's right.
Aha!
Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Hi.
I remember you showed me that we built like a special rig on Jinx. You can kind of control going her face from going looking more childish to like adult. You have that somewhere to pull up?
Yes. So when we first got the first rig of Jinx, the idea was to try to connect her somehow visually to what she was as a kid. Rounder face, bigger eyes, sadder look. We didn't want the typical like crazy girl laughing around like the Joker and just making no sense. We really wanted to make her feel like deranged and emotionally affected by what she went through as a kid.
I think we were a little bit worried about, you know, when we get to the adult Jinx, that we just lose that, like, I don't know, that beautiful little soul that just just tries to prove to her older sister, like, hey, like, I can do this, you know, like, believe in me. I think we should never work on a project that doesn't offer us something personal to explore. I think for the story that we have, it's a story about family, it's a story about siblings that have a hard time forgiving each other. It's a world of technology kind of taking over and us feeling like we're losing control over it. I think that those are just things that we as people think about and care about, you know. I think we want to also ask some questions that we think should be asked without necessarily giving you the answer, but at least asking like, hey, does a person, you know, like Jinx deserve a second chance? Can a monster ever be forgiven? I don't know. If you can figure out like what is something that if you love it, a lot of people would love it, that's where you really should go hard. And I think that's what we tried with Arcane, you know. We'll see, but I think it has potential.
How you doing, bud? The Skinks. I've had them for 23 years now. I got them when I was 15 and definitely old enough to make that kind of commitment. Yeah. The thing when you work on story is that, just generally speaking, it never stops. I feel like I just have voices in my head that argue a lot, and every now and again, something they say makes sense, and then you write it down. And that's basically, that's how the characters happen. These are obviously League of Legends characters mostly. I was original creative on like Riven up there, and Ahri, and let's see, Wukong, Nautilus, Lee Sin, and then there's just, I don't know, that guy I thought was cool.
So I did go to school for writing. You know, I went out to LA. One of the things that I stumbled upon was a truly bare bones, desperate sounding Craigslist post for a video game startup. My first and consistent reaction to that was this company has no chance.
I started playing in beta, and I found, the job offering to work in customer support at Riot on Craigslist, which led me to be interviewed by Alex.
Yep, for the record.
I think League was just really fun because it felt like there was kind of like the fingerprint of the people who made the game was so palpable when you played it, because the characters were so quirky, they were so different. You could just kind of tell people were just enjoying making these characters.
Early Champ concept meetings were so fun. We only had the one conference room, and it would just be everyone at the company who liked that, who was enthusiastic about it, just comes in, and you'd show up with something, right? You'd be like, here's this sweet art that I found, or here's this idea that I just jotted down. How do we turn that into a champion? I think the reason that we focused on Jinx was because, I don't know, Jinx just always had this spirit at the company. Katie D'Souza did this, and it wasn't a sketch, it was like a full concept of what she called Psycho Arsenal. It was not so different, honestly, from what Jinx looks like right now. You know, the long pigtails and just kind of like guns all over the place. I mean, everyone just fell in love with it immediately.
Vi and Jinx were characters that Alex and I always really liked.
Bravo, sis.
And we worked on them together on, you know, the different kind of teams. Alex was working on like the characters themselves, like their creative, their voiceover lines with, you know, other writers.
She's such a loser, always ready to cry.
And I worked on the music and then the cinematic on Jinx. So on the, I want to try something fun right now. So fun should have some kind of spike up, you know, like the screechy.
Okay, I'll try. Come on, shoot faster, just a little bit of energy. I wanna try something fun right now. I guess some people don't know that game. Let's build this situation.
And you know, when Christian made Get Jinxed, that was, you know, the most storytelling I think we'd seen in a video at that point.
Arcane started when Alex and I sat down together and were thinking what the devil we should be doing next.
Riot in general kind of struggled to put out like long-form narrative content. Our goal was to have deeper storytelling, right? To not just do video game action. Or as we at the company tend to call it, fight porn. I don't know if we call it that anymore, but that's what it always was. I just always had this sense of obligation to the players, you know. It just felt like we created these characters and the players answered us by spending so much time with them and loving them, and it just felt like they deserved to have better stories.
Whenever Jinx kills someone, she actually gets kind of like amped up. If basically the promise is like...
It would be nice to find some kind of thread, some sort of like emotional question thread.
We were just kind of talking, you know, like, man, how fun it would be to make something that's a bit bigger, you know, in the animation space, in the story space, and to kind of embrace all these different strengths that the team had developed over the years. Animation, music.
Every child. That sounds dumb.
Building characters, stories, and just go deep on it. We had this amazing, amazing partner in Fortiche, this animation studio in Paris. We worked with them on the Jinx music video, on the Imagine Dragons music video for Warriors. They just always had this like this X factor of like these beautiful visuals, it's super artistic and everything. It just kind of always clicked, you know? I always thought that if there's any superpower that we had in the beginning to make Arcane a thing, it was whether or not we could really unleash the potential of Fortiche.
Le problème, c'est de finir après avec un shot final où tu as Rémi qui serait beaucoup trop à gauche et lui qui serait beaucoup trop à droite, quoi.
The Buddha is the yes man of the company. He's saying yes to everything. Is this a good idea? Yeah. Yes, it is. Can I do it? Yes, you can.
We do a mix of 2D and 3D. Because the 2D effects are done in 12 images by second, then and the animation it's 24, like all the movie. So you have a mix of style, geek with dirty.
Hard at work.
Yes.
C'est très beau. C'est les mains lentilles. Typiquement, moi, je suis pas fan de la 3D pure et je trouve le style très intéressant, quoi. C'est plus organique.
How do you texturize something to look like a painting?
We paint.
So let's say you have like a character smoking a cigarette. Instead of having like a 3D smoke being simulated by 3D tools, it's actually 2D drawn, frame by frame, and gets this almost cartoony effect.
In fact, I start to do this 2D mix and 3D since 20 years with music video.
On est en train de maltraiter.
For me, it's a new way to do animation. It's not anime, it's not full CG, it's a mix of everything.
Are you feeling good about it?
It's an interview right now?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm not in the good mood.
I met Arnaud in a party. Arnaud was doing fun, cool music video with no money.
Je faisais de l'animation, mais c'était tout le temps un peu expérimental. En mix média, en stop motion, mais souvent avec une grosse partie quand même live action.
Cheers!
Ask Pascal a little bit.
As what?
Nothing.
Maybe another day?
A little bit drunk, maybe it's gonna be easier.
I met Pascal, he was the best guy for doing character in Paris.
When I was a kid, my dream was to make comic books or work on, for Marvel and stuff like that. I like characters. I like how you can bring personality and bring story.
I think back then I just found these tests that they would do where you could go like, man, like this looks different. This doesn't look like the typical expensive Hollywood animation production. This just looks very French.
I think he liked the mood because it was more adult, more lighting with flares and haze and something more like a live action movie.
Fortiche from the very beginning had this very unique approach to camera, making you feel like there's a person filming whatever's happening. There was an imperfection that could only be human in how it moved and how it felt. To be fair, the first answer when I went to the right leadership was like, I think we should make a TV show about our characters that is the highest budget ever spent on an animated series. It's gonna be great. The first answer was, no, get out of the office.
That was like a, oh crap. Like, Christian has showed up with those like bold ideas and bold asks before, you know? But this one was such a leap from sort of music video to like full animated show. It's so unbelievably daunting. And in the back of my mind, I'm just going, how am I gonna talk Christian out of this? Like, how am I gonna help him realize that like, we're jumping the shark here?
And then I came back and said, okay, give me like $2,000. And they're like, okay, fine. And so we just started, you know, doing some concept art. It was like, okay, you know, this looks really cool, right? Yeah, this looks pretty cool.
I thought it was a great idea, but I also knew how difficult it was to pull something like this off. We have something called the video game curse, which is very few games have adapted into film and television well.
One of the things that's really true that I think every creative can relate to is a lot of great creative ideas, they're fragile. They start off as a dream and an idea and a vision, and they haven't been fleshed out necessarily.
Okay, it was a little bit more. Now we can explore some 3D models and everything. Like $5,000. They're like, okay. And
I don't remember getting any of this money.
Anyway, let's not to linger on this very unimportant.
You got $2,000.
All right, this is our first behind the scenes in the writer's room. Alex, what year is it?
1922.
While we were developing the story, we also started working with Fortiche on these little spikes, you know, of like, hey, what would it look like if Vi was just in her apartment in Piltover, and she's like venting about how Powder, her little sister, you know, is just always messing up. You know, it was just a test of like, hey, like, can we even do animation where acting feels good?
All you had to do was run, Powder. Didn't we spend a bunch of time preparing you for this? You and I?
In the back of my mind, I was going, I kind of hope this loses steam because this is so unbelievably ambitious. Like, I don't know how in the world we're gonna pull this off.
That's when I said, okay, could you give me like, I think it was like 65 grand or so.
And there was this fight scene, it was sort of this, you know, animation test with Jace and Vi on a rooftop. It was so sick, just in terms of how the characters were expressed and how they came to life. Like all those little incremental tests they were just like, yeah, we need more of this.
I think that was the time when I think they realized that I'm probably serious about this project. I said to them, well, I mean, you have concept art now for the characters, for environments, you have 3D models, you have animation tests, you have material that we've had developed for the pilot. And I was like, are we gonna do this or not?
I sort of think about it as like, oftentimes not knowing what we're getting into was an advantage, because I think if we did know, we would have said, there's no way.
I mean, animation tests, it was beautiful, right? But it was just a small snippet of what the full series would be, and there were so many questions about like, well, what is the full story?
To me, the stakes are really high because we want to be respectful of players' time and trust. I'd for sure much rather not do a show than releasing something that's just okay.
I don't know if anyone among Riot's leadership necessarily thought that we would definitely be able to do it. But I think they all understood that we just had to try, you know? I mean, like, this was a bet. It was a risky bet. You just kind of have to, at some point, make that bet, you know? Otherwise, it's only gonna be ever a theory.
Fortiche was 5 people. So we had to build a studio of now 200, 250, 300 people, which is like, how do you build an animation studio? You know, we're a game company, how do you do that?
At that point, Fortiche had produced 2, 3, 4-minute music videos.
Le pari pour Christian et Riot, c'était est-ce qu'on était capable de sortir 5 heures, 6 heures de films. Et non plus, on ne savait pas.
When I met Christian, I remember him talking about the character arcs and what's gonna happen in that episode, and you know, I've already that in mind, and it's gonna be like so emotional. And I was like, dude, you're crazy. We haven't even started the first minute of the show. I don't think he was realizing what he was getting into, but I think he was a fool. But the excitement he had when he was talking about the show made the difference to me.
Even when there are a lot of question marks and obvious concerns, and on paper it's not supposed to work because, you know, the experience isn't there and the resume isn't there, like, that's precisely when it's worth jumping into the deep end of the pool and learning how to swim.
Il y avait plus de peur pendant le test que finalement quand on a commencé à faire le pilote. C'est là où on a pu mettre tout ce qu'on avait un peu en nous, toutes nos références, où il y a eu ce côté, le côté geek. Grâce à Christian et Riot, quand on a vu qu'ils nous laissaient les clés.
Basically, we had the pilot, you know, wrapped up more or less, and now was the time to start working on the rest of the first season.
We had an entire arc for the first season, I mean, filled with moments, you know, lots of art, lots of exploration, different locations, different characters, and we were already feeling the pressure of the sort of pipeline rolling.
These episodes take a tremendous amount of time to animate, and once the episode is in various stages of animation, changes are possible, but any change is tremendously disruptive in terms of the amount of time and resources it takes to sort of, so you're kind of locked in.
So yeah, at some point, there was a meeting on my calendar, and I went to Brandon's office, and there was like a bunch of people in there.
He basically, he called me and told me like, hey, I just talked to Brandon and like everyone.
It was basically like an intervention meeting.
And by the way, that's what we do for everything, even in game. If we're like on the cusp of launching and we think it's not right, like we'll stop, we'll hold, we'll pivot, we'll cancel.
Perhaps it's time I cut my losses.
I mean, I think with everything creatively, you know, you're always kind of waiting for that hammer to fall. We wanted to make sure the story that players got lived up to their expectations. If we couldn't do that, then we shouldn't do that.
The consensus was, you don't have the story yet, and it's not gonna work, you know?